Hello, and welcome to the Running Hook Podcast, hosted by Alex Burr, a member of the Running Hook Podcast Network. Welcome to another edition of the Running Hook Podcast. I was almost going to say Alex and Dylan Basketball Power Hour, but this isn't Dylan Hughes I have on. It's a frequent guest on the Running Hook. I'd say frequent. This is like your second time on in like at least the last month. It might have been sooner than that. I have no memory at this point. But it's Caleb Lynn, host of the Lynn Sanity Podcast on this very network. Caleb, how are we doing today, man?
Alex, I'm doing really well, man. There is a lot to get into. I know you wanted this to be, draft centered, and I cannot wait to dive into some of these guys and look at some transactions that have maybe a little bit of a bigger impact than what people realize, but aren't getting discussed to the highest. So I'm excited to see and have this discussion with you.
Yeah, it's going to be a fascinating episode, but we gotta really start off on a down note. Klay Thompson, poor guy, he tore his Achilles, and all feeling bad for him aside, this is a massive injury for the rest of the league. Like, this is a guy that I would say at worst is a top 15 player, right? You could make a case that he's pretty close to the top 10. I probably wouldn't go that far, right? But he's in his prime. He was a elite defender and an elite three-point shooter, the best 3-and-D player in the league, I would probably say. So let's just start off on that aspect. How big of an impact do you think, how much do you think this impacts the Warriors and their playoff chances?
I mean, for the way I look at the Warriors, I think that their hype was really because Steph and Klay were back. I have a really, really, really big concern that I want to hit my panic button 100 times on when it comes to their depth. I just want to keep hitting it. I do not want to rely on Jordan Poole if I'm a top Western Conference contending team in the backcourt. I don't like the way that they are having to use their backcourt. I think if the Warriors can make some moves, which I definitely think that they are able to. We've already seen one made where they can start getting some better depth. I like that, but I think this is a massive deal because I've never been a huge believer in their depth. There's too many awesome teams in the West. Like, an injury like Klay Thompson could drag you from being a 4th seed, Alex, to even being the 8th. Like, that's how insane the Western Conference is. And, and that's not me doubting Stephen Curry. I want to make that clear. That's just Klay Thompson is that big of a piece, and they're both better with each other. So when they don't have one or the other on the court, I mean, that's going to be a blow either way.
So this is going to be a test to me of a couple different things. They obviously traded for Kelly Oubre in a trade that we'll touch on in a little bit because that's not our pressing concern. But they added Oubre, right? Andrew Wiggins, this is going to be the biggest test of his career, but we'll get to Wiggins in a second. To me, this is going to be the Steph Curry show, right? This is going to be what Damian Lillard's situation was in Portland, where Damian Lillard is the prime, in this scenario, Steph is Dame and Andrew Wiggins is CJ, with no disrespect meant to CJ, right? Because I know CJ is obvious. I'd rather have CJ 1,000 times over 1,000 over Wiggins.
Yeah.
But we're going to see what Steph Curry is going to be like, where he has to take all the offensive load on his shoulders. He hasn't had to do that since 2016.
Been a while.
And
yeah,
he's older now. I mean, he was always an older player. He came out of Davidson after 3 years. Yeah. So we're going to see how he can handle himself, right? And how he can perform in that regard. But this is going to be an interesting test of the Warriors. I think you're right. This does push them out of any possibility of a top 4 seed, unless Steph absolutely goes supernova, which is always a possibility, seeing
it definitely
is. He's a top 5 player in the league. But I mean, so let's just look at the teams that we probably could have reasonably expected to be ahead of them. Okay. So the Lakers and Clippers, obvious, right? They have they each have two elite players, and one of them is an injury risk in Kawhi, but they load manage Kawhi enough where I don't think he'll miss. Kawhi will probably miss 15 games this year, right? Like per the usual. The Nuggets. The Nuggets are a great regular season team, as we've seen, and in the bubble, they proved that they were a great playoff team, right?
Yep.
The Jazz, I think, can now be expected to finish ahead of the Warriors, right?
Yeah.
I don't like the Jazz have a lot of depth. They're gonna bolster their team like they always do. They're gonna sign a couple of free agents. If they can get a bigger guy like Millsap, that would be great for their team. But let's just let's not go entirely there for right now. The Trailblazers. Covington's a huge addition, and I think
massive.
They could reasonably they have a really solid shot of finishing in the top 4. I think that they're really good. The Suns, this addition, it might just be a better team than the Warriors with Wiggins and Wiseman, right?
Sure.
Like, it's going to be – so this is the other thing too, right? We're not going to talk about Wiseman when we get to our draft discussion later in the episode. But it's going to be interesting to see how they integrate this rookie center, right?
It definitely will be.
Who played 2 games in college.
Yep.
NBA defense for centers is one of the hardest things to learn, right? Draymond can't play center like that anymore. I wouldn't think, right? He did it for 4 or 5 years, and it's incredibly grueling. Like PJ Tucker is a young 35. He played in the NBA he hasn't played in the NBA for very long. Draymond played center for the better part of 5 years, not like all the time, but he played it in the minutes that matter most.
Yeah. And
it's going to be interesting to see how Draymond performs too, because we don't know. We just don't know, right? Like, is he going to be back to 2018 Draymond even? Draymond has only shot well one time in his career, and that was when Luke Walton was the coach.
Yeah.
If Draymond is given, because he's going to have to be given the green light to shoot.
He's going to, yeah.
Who else do they have on the team? And let's use that to transition to Oubre.
Sure.
So Oubre, to me, they traded him for a light, or not a lightly. It was actually a pretty good trade for the Warriors, I'd say, given how
Presti's for the Warriors.
Given how Presti's been swindling, how he's been swindling teams in this postseason. But top 20 protected first round pick, and if the Warriors are in the top 20, it becomes 2 second round picks. That's pretty good, I would say. That's pretty good haul for Oubre for them to get off of. Basically, Oklahoma City's getting a free $15 million off their books. So how do you see Oubre fitting in with this Warriors team?
Alex, I just think he is a player that has gone, because of the bubble, has just gone from very he's a really good player you don't know about, to he's like criminally underrated, Alex. He's because we saw Phoenix, obviously do their thing without him in the bubble. And then now, I mean, you're getting a guy, Alex, who is extremely young, a promising defender with great length. He can shoot effectively. He can drive. And, I also like the fact he's left-handed. I think that's kind of cool. And he's got this ability.
That's the lefty.
Yeah, he's got this. He's got a swag to him that I like. I think the Warriors need some of that. Like, not saying that they always have a culture and mentality, but when you don't have Thompson, especially, like, you still have to prove, like, we're effing back, baby. Like Curry and Green are going to do that, but Kelly Oubre is going to help that cause. That's a guy who plays confident, who likes to keep the ego of the team in confidence. And I mean, Alex, I really don't understand why OKC moved off of Kelly Oubre.
I don't either.
He's 20. He's so young. Like, that's a part of your rebuilding. That's a guy that you can move forward with. I just thought this was a really good move by Golden State to take advantage of a team who's desperate. I'll be honest, who's desperate for draft picks, because the problem that I have for the Thunder is you have 18 draft picks that I guarantee you're not picking any of them, and you're going to suck for the next 3 or 4 years. So what are you doing? What are you doing? You have 18 draft picks and you're not going to use them all. And I think that's a legitimate problem that I don't think people are talking about. People can talk about the fact that they're oh, they're rebuilding and they're trying to get younger. But Alex, I mean, there's a difference in how many picks you can have, right? And if you're not trying to, that number I think should be a little bit decreased from 18. And I would say, they probably have a little bit more moves to make. I could easily see them, navigate the trade value on Steven Adams or somebody like that. If value, deals are available. So I like this deal for the Warriors. And I'm just confused about it from the Thunder perspective.
Yeah, so the appeal for picks is obviously this is a value that we can we can do our own scouting, we can do whatever, right?
Sure.
That's the value of picks, but where it fails in practice is that the draft is a total crapshoot when it comes down to it, right?
That's exactly right.
So the Brooklyn picks, right?
Yep.
So let's just look at all four of those Brooklyn picks. So the first one was Terry Rozier. The second one was Jaylen Brown. The third one was Jason Tatum. The fourth one was Colin Sexton. Varying range of effectiveness there. If I was going to rank them 1, 2, 3, 4, it'd be Tatum, Brown, Sexton, Rozier. So, varying ranges of effectiveness there. And it's obviously the higher you are to the top of the draft, right?
Yeah.
Then the better your selections are.
Yeah.
But Dylan made a good point on Wednesday. We were hearing all about this Miami pick, right? This unprotected Miami pick for years. And where is it going to be next year? In the late 20s?
Exactly.
We've been hearing about that 2021 unprotected Miami pick for years.
Yeah, we have.
And it's going to be worthless. It's literally going to be not worthless, right? Because no, actually it is going to be worthless because Miami's pretty sure is going to keep their pick because I'm pretty sure it's a pick swap, right? With Oklahoma City somehow has the rights to that pick. I'm not intimate with I'm not familiar with the exact details with it, but yeah, the picks are better in theory than in practice, and people love in theory, right? Everybody loves in theory. This is applicable to life as well as,
Sure it is.
Yeah. But everyone's in theory, this works, but they don't think about how it would actually work in practice, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so let's get back to Oubre, because Oubre, to me, I did not realize he averaged almost 19 points a game this year.
Cold-blooded, man.
And so let's just look 1.3 steals, 6 rebounds. This is a guy, he's only 6'7", but he's 230 pounds. He could play 4. Yeah. If you wanted him to, right?
Uh-huh.
If you wanted to, I don't know who would play 2 though, because this lineup would work better with Klay.
It definitely would. I agree.
You could play Draymond at 5, him at 4, Wiggins at 3, something like that.
Sure,
right?
You could. And
this is the problem with Klay getting hurt. Coming back to that, it totally messes up their rotations.
Yeah, it does.
In the perfect world, right? Their starting lineup would probably be Klay. So it'd be Steph, Klay, Oubre, Draymond, and Wiseman with Wiggins coming off the bench and doing, all the scoring stuff, right? Or I don't know how Wiggins would take that. He's a number 1 pick, whatever. But
yep, I know. Yeah.
Still, again, in theory, right? But now your starting lineup's going to be Steph, Wiggins, Oubre, Draymond, and Wiseman, and there is only one shooter I trust amongst that group, and it is Stephen Curry. I don't trust any of the other 4 from 3.
Not enough. Yeah, you need Kelly to be better from 3.
It sounds like Wiseman's not going to shoot any threes, but
yeah,
I want someone out there they're probably going to have to bench one of those guys. They're probably not going to be able to start all 4 of them, right? And you can't start Pascal over Draymond because Pascal can't shoot either. Yeah. So I would probably trust Pascal more in a couple of years shooting, right? I think it looks like he has a good jumper from what I've seen.
Agree. Yep. Yeah, I like him. I like him a lot. I
just I don't know about the Warriors. The Warriors are going to be a tough scenario. I'd say right now 6 to 8 is probably a solid bet for where they'll finish in the playoff run.
Yeah.
And really all the best to Klay Thompson. Everyone hopes you recover. You're one of my favorite players in the league and one of everyone's favorite players in the league. So everyone just hopes that you can come back and make a full recovery and that your career isn't ruined, because the Achilles, as we know, as we're going to see with Kevin Durant, it's one of the most devastating injuries there is. And if he can come back at full strength, that's remarkable because not a lot of people do. Not a lot of people do. I think Kevin Durant can, but I don't think that it's hard. It's hard for sure. So let's go ahead and move on to the Philadelphia 76ers. They made a couple moves that I found interesting. The first one I want to talk about is the Josh Richardson for Seth Curry trade. So this is another in theory versus in practice trade, right? Because in theory, the 76ers got railroaded in this trade, right? Because they gave up a way better player in Josh Richardson.
Oh, yeah.
But hear me out, okay? Seth Curry, to me, fits that team perfectly because they need another shooter. They just need shooters. That's what they need. They need guys that can shoot alongside Ben and Joel, right? And this is another trade that they made where they got off of Al Horford and got Danny Green, where they need guys who are respected as shooters, right? Danny Green shot horribly in the playoffs last year, but you saw the way teams closed out on him. They're still scared of him.
They are.
They're still scared of Danny Green.
He's a reputation. Yep.
Right. Exactly. He's a reputation shooter. And I heard someone say, you leave Tobias Harris open or you let Tobias Harris shoot a couple of threes and he misses, you're going to sag off of him.
Yep.
So this to me is like, we'll talk about Josh Richardson to the Mavs, but to me, this makes the 76ers fit a whole lot better.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to talk about Seth Curry specifically, I think there's a lot to like. I mean, obviously, that Doc had an influence on this deal. There isn't a doubt in my mind there. And he comes in and gives this team a really good 3-point shooter. In my opinion, a very underrated defender. Alec, I think he's not talked about in that light. I think he had a reputation coming out of college, Duke and Liberty, where he was not the greatest on defense. But he's honestly really gotten better at that. Now, I'm not saying he's like a top of the top guy, but he's definitely made it to where he's playable on that end. He's serviceable on that end. And I think with Seth, this is a guy that's going to fit in well because he is a catch and shooter at the end of the day. And, when you look at how you mentioned with Ben being this ultimate creator, ultimate passer, I could see Seth Curry actually, hear me out here. I could see Seth Curry being an even better Bellinelli. Bellinelli had a lot of strive, and had that very good year when he was in Philly after the buyout with him and Ilyasova. And I could see Seth Curry being the Bellinelli, just the extremely effective 3-point shooter, probably even better 3-point shooter with an even better defensive game. Like I could just see him fit seamlessly there. I'm also very curious if they don't move off of Embiid in a potential Harden package to see Seth come off some screens a little bit, because I'm trying to think about this off the top of my head, Alex. Who has Seth Curry really played with, right? Who he's been able to use off stuff like that.
It's true.
Just create, I think that'll be something to keep an eye on. Does that unlock another part of his 3-point game? It could. It could. And so I think this is a move that I definitely see why Philly made the move. I'll say that I see it. I can understand the logic.
I understand the logic too, right? Like,
yeah.
This is something that Daryl Morey got accused of often in Houston was that he did not care for chemistry, right? He did not care for chemistry. He only cared about putting stars together, right?
That's exactly right.
But these two moves are kind of going against that, right? Where like it was obvious that Richardson and Horford and Tobias Harris, really, none of them really fit, right? But you take two of them out of the equation and try to fit the third one, that'll probably make more sense, right? And I have to say, of all the three, Tobias Harris probably is the safest one to keep. I probably would have kept Richardson myself. But, Curry and Danny Green, to me, are both going to thrive in Philly. And it's going to make,
100%.
So you could slide Tobias or Ben down to the 4, right? One of them is going to play power forward this upcoming season. I don't think there's really any doubt about that. And knowing Doc, he's probably going to play Tobias at power forward because that's what he does.
That's when he unlocked him.
Right. That's exactly in Los Angeles. So having Danny Green and Seth Curry as your starting backcourt, you might not think that that's like a, dynamic duo, but Seth, you're right. Seth is an underrated player. And the Bellinelli thing, to me, that you hit the nail on the head with that, because like the way Bellinelli was bombing threes in Philly, Seth Curry played 24 minutes a game last year and shot 5 threes a game. That number is going up. Like, and then Danny Green's defense, we were talking about this pre-show.
Sure. But
then the Lakers losing Danny Green, I think that's going to be a big loss for their defense.
Yeah.
Like, that's going to be, I don't know. That's just, to me, is going to be a really strong loss for the Lakers.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And it adds to Philly's incredible perimeter defense anyway, with Ben Simmons, with Matisse Thybulle. Danny Green is somebody that a lot of teams would be like ecstatic to have as their potentially second or best perimeter defender. Danny Green is probably their third best perimeter defender, Alex. That is an insane third best perimeter defender. I know Danny Green is not the exact same guy he may have been in Toronto per se, but I mean, like you and I talked about, he has a reputation to shoot the three effectively. Nobody's disputing that. And he still has a really good defensive ceiling.
And you look at the percentages, right? I'm going to go to the playoff percentages. I'm pretty sure he shot 36% for 3 in the playoffs. It's not like he shot mind-numbingly bad. It just seemed like every time I watched him, the shot didn't go in. But yeah,
that's what I thought too.
This year, he shot 37% from 3 in the regular season. I'm going to go to the playoff stats, but teams had to guard him, right? When he shot that shot, so okay, he shot 34% from 3 in the playoffs, which isn't great. But the way that teams guard him, right? The way that teams guard him, really, he hasn't shot better than 40% since 2014, right? I don't think that's a coincidence in the playoffs. Like, in the playoffs, he hasn't shot better than 40% since 2014 when the Spurs won. Sure. But I don't think it's a coincidence, because he's been such a good shooter that it's not surprising that teams are going to game plan to stop him, right?
Yeah.
They know if he gets hot, they're screwed. We saw in the 2013 and 14 finals, in the playoffs in general, because in the finals, everyone was hot for the Spurs in 14. But teams, when he gets hot, he is an incredibly great shooter.
Yeah, he is.
So going all out to stop him is going to help Ben and Joel, right? Because there's going to be a guy glued to him. There's going to be a guy glued to Seth. So the spacing is going to be a lot better this year, right? And if Tobias's 3-point percentage will probably jump back to what a regular year for him would be.
I would hope, yeah.
So if you can just run the team better, and if you can get Ben to run more pick and rolls, which seems to be one of the issues, then I think you're in a great place. And let's go ahead and transition off of that to Josh Richardson in Dallas, because I think that's a phenomenal fit right there.
That's phenomenal.
Like, upgrading from Seth Curry to Josh Richardson. Seth Curry was great in Dallas last year. No, I don't think
he was.
Either of us would deny that. But having Josh Richardson as your secondary creator now instead of Tim Hardaway Jr. is going to be huge. I think that helps offset the loss of Porzingis until he gets back. And having the perimeter trio of Doncic, that's another team that could be better than Golden State, by the way, that we totally forgot.
100%.
That's another team that's probably going to be better than Golden State. So you have Doncic, Richardson, and Hardaway Jr. Those 3 guys to me are going to be.
I like that.
That's a force to reckon with right there. If Hardaway Jr. plays as well as he did last year, that's legitimately a force to be reckoned with. So how do you like the Josh Richardson to Dallas fit?
I mean, I would love to be in the middle of that phone call when the Sixers said we wanted Seth Curry, and then Dallas probably may have just said, oh, well, we'd like Josh Richardson. And then the Sixers are just like, oh, well, hey, we'll just give you a second round pick on top of that. Like no big deal. I mean, if I was in the front office that day, plenty of drinks would be had after that deal, because I think this is a ridiculous move, Alex. And the thing that I think is interesting, Alex, with the Dallas thing is Philly made him a catch and shooter. And I think if you watched him play, it was not Josh Richardson's on a decline. Like everybody who watched them play, who saw them play, whether that is in the bubble or regular season, could see that Josh was limited in what he could do. Brown did not let him be anything more than a catch and shooter and play good defense. And that is not what made him good in Miami. He was so much more than that. 3 assists, Alex, 3 assists.
Yeah.
I mean, that number is going to bounce up. He had 4 assists, but the year before they traded him, I see those numbers going up a lot with being in Dallas because of their unselfish and great creativity that Rick Carlisle has. I think that this is a move that's going to unlock his skills in so many ways. And I'm excited to see Richardson play with. Now, I understand that Porzingis is not coming back till January or something, but I'm curious to see a guy like that with Richardson because, again, when you're looking at Miami's always had dive hard bigs. Mm-hmm. Philly, I don't even count Joel Embiid as 3-point shooters. Every guy's dive hard big. If you have a guy like Porzingis who could pick and fade, you can use the length of Richardson and some pick and rolls, and you have, I think, an underappreciated part of Tim Hardaway is everybody talks about, he can get on fire really quickly. I really like Tim Hardaway as a catch and shooter. And so this is a team in Dallas that I just think upgraded in a way that was needed because Seth Curry, you wouldn't say Seth Curry was bad, but I have always thought they needed another guy to just help create. And it didn't need to be anything out the wazoo, Alex. I mean, you and I have talked about a potential Malik Beasley fit. But this is just as good. This is just as good as getting. Yeah, this is better. Yeah, this is better. And to me, what a move by Dallas because he does have a 1-year deal. He is on an expiring. You got to think that they will look to re-sign him. You got to think. So this is a great move for Dallas. Love it.
I love it for them. To me, Richardson is the definition of jack of all trades, master of none. Right?
Yep.
Like. That fits him to a T because he can do a little bit of everything, right?
Sure.
He can dribble a little. He can pass a little. He can shoot a little. He can, he defends a lot. But
he does.
He's not like, I would say last year he was pretty elite defending actually, but we don't have to get into that right now. And he's just good in every facet of the game, right? And that's something that a team like Dallas needs. They need more guys like that, right? We talked about upgrading the Justin Jackson spot, right? The fact that they kept they have Dorian Finney-Smith still. I would say that Justin Jackson spot, I talked about that with Dylan. That Justin Jackson spot is pretty upgraded. You don't need to play Justin Jackson anymore, except in the regular season.
Yeah.
And you could slide Finney-Smith down to 4 more and play a small ball lineup that way. There's so many different possibilities. And Carlisle is such a great coach. Carlisle's the forgotten great coach of the league. Everyone forgets that he's such a great coach. But something was reminded to me. I don't remember what podcast I was listening to because they were talking about Steve Nash, but Rick Carlisle was the coach. Basically, he was basically running the team when Larry Bird was in Indiana. So do with that information what you will, right? Yeah. He basically was running the Pacers when they made the conference finals and made the finals. So Carlisle's always been a great coach, right? And I'm curious to see how they perform next year because I think that this could give them a real boost because to me that was all they were missing. And I know you're not high on Kleber, but he to me having that front line right with
Kleber, I like him more. Yeah, in this deal, he's a better player for me.
Kleber, Powell, Porzingis, you just go down the front court now, and it all makes a lot more sense.
Yes, it does.
So I don't know what Dwight Powell's injury status is. I'll look that up real quick, but. If he's back healthy, I think that this is going to be fascinating fit, right? We'll see.
Yeah, it will.
We'll see what happens. I'm curious to see what happens with that, but I mean, Al Horford to the Thunder. We don't really need to talk about that. We don't really need to talk about Al Horford to the Thunder. There's not much going on there. They're going to try to ship him out the first chance they can. Let's talk about Gordon Hayward declining his option because that's a fascinating situation. It's certainly a choice in this economy, right? In this NBA to decline a player option, and especially one that's over $30 million. But
sure,
I mean, just So do you think that Gordon Hayward doesn't want to be in Boston anymore? What do you think is going on with Gordon Hayward?
Well, you have to see if there's got to be a bigger deal, Alex. I mean, you don't sit there and not take this. I mean, you don't sit there and not take $34 million if it's handed to you, Alex.
Right.
I mean, I don't honestly, and I don't even care who you are as a player, top tier, lower tier. I don't care. It's $35 million. So, I mean, if you are the Gordon Haywards of the world and you're declining that deal, there is somebody that a team that New York Knicks, who are looking to offer a long deal, who needs some stars. And I'm going to be the guy who really plays the opposite way on this, which is I think Boston needs to move on.
Oh, yeah.
They just need to move on. This is a player that I like. I don't care. To be honest, Alex, I don't care if he signs less than $35 million. Move on. You've got other things that you've got to do to rejuvenate this team. You need to figure out how to get better backup play behind Kemba Walker. You need to find a way to mix and match Daniel Theis's minutes, and declining this deal for Hayward gives the Celtics a little bit more creativity in how they can explore that depth. And I mean, I understand we've had a lot of people talk about, the Pacers want Gordon. The Pacers want to trade Miles Turner and yada, yada, yada. And, I think really, sure, he'd be a good fit there. But I also really believe that, just getting off the salary in general and just building the rest of their roster is going to be better. I think Hayward is going to be on a team that rots. I'm going to say he's on the Knicks. I'm not as crazy on this bit as everybody else is, but hearing a lot about Atlanta, Alex, I'd be curious to see what you think there. I'm definitely not as crazy on that. I think there's a couple teams that are sitting there in the market for him that I'm like, just go to the Knicks if you want money, because the Knicks just need truck rating. So I'd be my only logic in terms of team fit and money, because that there's something long-term out there. He's not declining 35 for no reason.
I would agree, but also I don't know where he's going to get the money from. He hasn't looked like 2017 Gordon Hayward, right? Sure. Deserved every ounce of a max contract.
Yeah, he did.
And this is again, it bears repeating that this is not Gordon's fault, but the second he, broke his ankle, that he just hasn't been as good.
Yeah.
And he hasn't been that great since he, that injury happened. And he, at best, he's been a top 75 player, I would say.
Exactly. Yeah.
His place in Boston's pecking order was where it deserved to be, right? It was fourth. He deserved to be fourth. He deserved to be behind Jason. He deserved to be behind Kemba. He deserved to be behind Jalen. I mean, over Marcus, obviously, but so if he has the promise to be a first option, right? You don't be an all-star like that and be as good as Gordon Hayward was if you don't want to be the first option. I think the Knicks makes too much sense, right?
Sure.
As for the Atlanta thing, it would be intriguing because you bump everyone down a roll, right? You give Trey someone who's a good playmaker still, even with all the caveats I just said about him not being as good since he, broke his ankle. I don't know. It'd be an interesting fit to watch, but I don't think it would work. I just don't think it would work because, do you start Reddish? Do you start Hunter? What's the starting lineup?
That's where I want to get into with it is. So if you're Atlanta right now, you really like the fact that Herter is this lights out catch and shooter. Mm-hmm. And so you like the fact that you feel like you have the young, understand, I'm not trying to compare here. I'm just saying they're a young version of the Splash Brothers. They like to shoot. They have good percent, all that stuff. That's right. What they kind of see there. Okay. Small forward, you just picked DeAndre Hunter in the top 5, Alex. So you're telling me that and so you're telling me that you're going to move off of a top 5 small forward, a guy they picked in the lottery just this last year, for a guy, which you and I just talked about, who's not insane in terms of a player, you could honestly make an argument he's not even an upgrade over DeAndre Hunter or Cam Reddish because
he is definitely an upgrade. He's an upgrade.
Let me just play devil's advocate in this sense, Alex. If I'm the Atlanta Hawks and I have this huge cap money, am I just using my money to just use money on signing Hayward when I have a top 5 pick and a top, that's all I'm saying, Alex, because I don't know if that's the right logic to use the money to sign a guy like Hayward when I have 2 promising young players that just need more time.
Yeah, I would agree with that, right? Because I think Reddish has one of the most scintillating potentials in the last year's draft.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, totally. I would say it's probably like him, Ja, and Ja and Zion are obviously on a different level, but Reddish and Hero to me are on the same level, like in terms of enticing potential.
Yeah.
And that's saying something because Hero showed out in the playoffs, and obviously we haven't seen Reddish in months, but
right.
Reddish to me, like the way he already defended as a rookie, right? Yeah. Like, okay, you know more about the draft than I do, and we'll talk about last year's draft real quick. Did Reddish defend like this at Duke? Was he this good on defense at Duke?
I think he was a good defender at Duke, but I think the big thing is I think he knew that in the NBA his strength was going to be athleticism and transition, which defense is a way that you can show your athleticism in transition. And then so I think Reddish took his defense up to another level when he got to the NBA.
And if he keeps playing defense like that, then he's going to be a valuable player for years to come, especially if he can develop any kind of offense, right?
Very much so.
So you got to take that. And then I see, this is where the Hayward thing is interesting because you could go 75 different ways with Hayward, right? Since he's opted out, he's easily the best player in the free agent class. I mean, excluding Anthony Davis, who is going to re-sign with the Lakers, right? This is a formality.
Yeah.
Hayward is by far to be the best player in the free agent class. I would rather have Gordon Hayward over Danilo Gallinari. Like I don't think that's close. I mean,
not at all.
Hayward to me is a way better defender than Gallinari is.
Totally is.
I mean, Hayward's looked a lot better, right? Because we forget that Hayward's prime has coincided with him being in Boston with Tatum and Brown, and then in Utah when his center was Rudy Gobert. So we'll see how he looks on a different team. But Hayward to me is going to be. It's a fascinating fit.
It is. It is. I agree.
Well, God, this is so fascinating to me because I love Hayward, right? I want to see where he goes.
I do too. Yeah.
I don't want him in Indiana though. I think that's a bad fit. I don't think they need Gordon Hayward. If you trade for Gordon Hayward, I want to see Victor Oladipo go out over Miles because I think Miles hit a real groove playing power forward this year.
Zach, do you hear that one?
And this is you notice I co-opt a lot of Dylan's takes, but they're the takes that are good. Like, they Miles to me and to Dylan, we both noticed this was that Miles started playing a lot better once he started playing more 4, right? Once he got used to it and playing on the perimeter more. And with a coach like Bjorkgren, I want to see him try out the 2-big style. I want to see him. I want to see him try it. I want to see Miles shoot 7 threes a game. I want to see Miles shoot 7 threes a game. I want to see Domas handle the ball all the time.
Good point.
I wish the Pacers hired Chris Finch because he's the guy that's unleashed Jokic, right, and did all that stuff. But I don't think Bjorkgren was a bad hire, right? If Nurse trusts him, then who am I not to trust him?
Exactly.
The Hayward situation is going to be fascinating because the Knicks probably seem like the logical destination, and to me, that's a giant waste of $30 million a year. Like he could use that money so much better. Like I'd rather sign Fred VanVleet for 20 a year than Gordon Hayward for 30. As crazy as that sounds.
That is crazy. And I don't know where I stand on
Okay, here's
I don't
my
like
thinking,
both,
right?
But
here's my thinking, right? At least I know Fred VanVleet is going to score at a high level and play defense at a high level. Right? Whether that leads to playoff success since he's 6 feet tall, whatever. Sure. But
whatever.
I'd rather sign the certainty than the unknown.
That's fair.
Because the unknown is that Hayward can be like he was in Utah. We don't know that. We don't know if Hayward can be as good as he was in Utah. That was a long time ago. He was in Utah. The last time he played in Utah was 2017. So by the time the season tips off, it'll be practically 2021.
Yeah.
I just think it's a fair concern. That's all I'm saying.
Nope. With you. 100%.
So let's move on to this crazy Bogdan Bogdanovic situation. Dylan and I talked about it on the pod like it was going to happen, right? Like it was just going to happen. But then the Bucks released Ersan Ilyasova. And any hopes of a trade went suddenly careening out the window. Let's just start with you on this one. What's your take on this whole Bogdan Bogdanovic situation?
Well, there's so many ways to go about this, Alex, and I'll tell you, when it comes to getting, the move here, I mean, this is just it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing that this happens in a trade. It's embarrassing that Ilyasova sucked so bad that they released him because they couldn't get a trade done. It's embarrassing that this is where they're at. The Bucks were doing all of this to try to get him, to get the main man back. I don't need to say his name, to get the main man back. And it doesn't seem like you're helping your cause with not getting this deal done. Reputations will be handed out because of this deal. There will be players that say, hey, do you remember this? Do you remember the fact that they did this, agreed to this? Do you remember this? I do think that this is a big deal in reputation because everybody knows that they want to get players to go with Giannis. And I mean, Alex, this is a deal that I don't have a whole lot of words for it, but I just think is embarrassing for both sides in how this was handled.
Yeah. To me, this is starting to look more and more like teams are just complaining about the Bucks tampering, right? Which is hilarious because the teams that probably complained are the Golden State Warriors, the Miami Heat, and the Dallas Mavericks, right? Let's make that abundantly clear. You know what all three of those teams have in common, Caleb? What do all three of those teams have in common? You have any idea? I can't fathom why they would be complaining about the Bucks tampering. It defies the imagination. It's startling, right? Who could possibly tamper? What is tampering? Please.
I don't think anybody knows what that is, Alex.
I don't think like the league is so pure, right?
So honest.
No one could possibly sign a Kemba Walker contract 2 hours before the moratorium opens. No, that could never happen.
No,
that would never happen. This is ridiculous. Okay. And Caleb, I'm just going to go on a little rant here. I'm sick of this purity bullshit. Okay. I'm sick of it. There's no purity in sports. Okay. We need to get this image out of our heads. Everybody tampers, right? Everybody's probably doing some kind of performance enhancing drug to make themselves better at the sport. Okay. We just have to get this image out of our head that everything's all pure, right? Everything's all snowball white. Everything's all, crystal clear because it's not. Okay. We saw last year, Kevin Durant and Kemba Walker both signed with their teams before the fucking moratorium lifted. Why is anyone mad about this? And we were talking before the show, right? There's a famous Jerry Tarkanian quote about the NCAA. Mm-hmm. It's Jerry Tarkanian said the NCAA was so mad at Kentucky, they gave Cleveland State 3 years probation. Right. It's an iconic quote for a lot of reasons because we see that's how the NCAA operates. And this is what it looks like the league is doing now. Why does anyone care? Right. This isn't even tampering because. OK, so this is why it isn't tampering even, because if they were negotiating a sign and trade, why can't the Kings negotiate with their own restricted free agent?
Yeah, exactly right.
And I saw on Twitter yesterday a link to Bogdan Bogdanovic and his agent who orchestrated the whole Marcus Morris situation and the Nemanja Bjelica situation with Sacramento or with Philadelphia and Sacramento. And I can see kind of the connection there, but this to me just feels like everyone's complaining about tampering. And it honestly just feels gross because it's like, there are teams with agenda out there trying to get Giannis, right? Everyone wants Giannis to be a free agent next summer.
Yeah, they do.
And I can't just help but feel that way. Why the hell do you care about tampering now? Everyone tampers. Everyone tampers.
Exactly.
obviously you can't do it the Magic Johnson style of tampering, right? You can't do I love Paul George. I would love to have him on the Lakers, right? Yep. Like you can't, like that's obviously not good, but behind the scenes, why does anyone care? You do it too. Shut up. Like like it legitimately boggles the mind because like, it feels like there's an anti-Bucks agenda. The Bucks are a small market. They're trying to win. And you're going to take this away from them because you can't stand the thought of a team negotiating with its own restricted free agent and negotiating a trade to send a guy to the Bucks.
Right.
Like this trade wouldn't have even happened until after Friday, but it was allowed because it's its own team. Like restricted free agency is different. And now it's going to be an awkward situation with Dante and DJ Wilson because those guys were almost traded.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like
you think they feel valued? No.
And it's like, if I was going to want any guy on my team to feel valued before I tried to trade his ass, it was Dante DiVincenzo.
That's exactly right, Alex.
Like
that's exactly right. That's exactly right.
It's frustrating. And then the Bucks do the most Bucks move of all time, trying to avoid the luxury tax. It's like all these things. Okay, I'm going to say a lot of things, and all these things are true. Okay, the Kings are incompetent. Joe Dumars is a terrible GM. Okay, the Bucks are incompetent.
Dumars is a terrible GM, Alex. Wow, Alex. Wow, Dumars is such a bad GM. It's not like he has any moves to show for it, Alex.
Go tell that to Charlie Villanueva and Ben Gordon. Remember those contracts? So.
Oh yes, Alex. Oh yes.
Okay, the Bucks are terrible owners, and they're fucking loaded, and they can't pay. They can't fathom the idea of paying the luxury tax. You dodged the luxury tax last year. Why not pay it this year? Right? And it also can be true that this is really, really, really gross in terms of like tampering. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like in terms of like how we feel about tampering. Right. Like it just is like, why do you care so much? Everybody tampers with each other. Like everybody's talking to each other. There have probably been deals that have been negotiated upon for months that are going to be announced at 6 o'clock today. Right. Like do you mean to tell me, Caleb, that teams just all up like Timofey Mozgov just happened to call the Lakers up at 12 o'clock and be like, here you go, sign me to a contract, right? You mean to tell me that? Like, you mean to tell me they followed the rules?
Right. Right.
It is infuriating because it shouldn't even be a big deal because of the Kings, but the Bucks, right? For some reason, Adam Silver fined him about Giannis. Yeah. Talking about their own guy wanting to sign a contract extension. Why the hell are you doing that? If the Pelicans did that with Anthony Davis, are they going to get fined? Why are you getting fined for talking about a guy's future free agency?
Yeah, I know. So just, it doesn't, it's bad.
To borrow a segment from your show, Adam Silver needs to get the sack. Okay.
He needs to get the sack, baby.
I'm sick of it. Everyone's like, oh, Adam Silver is such this great commissioner. No, he's just as shady as Stern was, but everyone's like, oh, Donald Sterling. So no one's going to talk about, like, I don't think it's unfair to say, Caleb, that the league was a lot better off even during late era David Stern, where the league was obviously wreaking games. I don't think I'm that crazy to say that. Like, the league was in a lot healthier state. Now, did they have Michael Jordan? Yes, they did. But still, man, I don't like the direction where the league is going. Because it feels like they're trying to get Giannis off of Milwaukee. And that feels gross to me. Like, I'm not small market king Devin Voss over here, right? Like, I don't think anyone would accuse me of that. But shout out Devin, by the way. I love you.
Shout out Voss. Yeah, shout out Voss.
I don't think anyone would accuse me of being a small market lover, but you got to give them a chance.
Yeah, you do. I agree.
You got to, you can't just. The league is obviously better when the Lakers and the Knicks and the Celtics are good, right? You got to give the Pacers a chance. You got to give the Bucks a chance. You got to give the Timberwolves a chance. The Timberwolves haven't earned a chance per se, but
you think you've had a better shot? Like, Milwaukee hasn't won a title since '73, Alex. I mean,
right. This
is the best chance that you will ever have to get a title, and you're blowing it before it's even starting.
They definitely deserve some blame here for sure. Like, the way that they've handled this situation hasn't been Hasn't been phenomenal.
No.
But I can't also act like this is really gross from the league. I said, all things can be true. All things can be true that this is really gross incompetence from the Bucks and the Kings, and this is also just like I took a very early opportunity to laugh at this on Twitter, right? Because the Kings always mess up.
Yep.
But this is becoming more and more clear to me that this isn't the Kings' fault.
Sure.
This is more the NBA's fault. And Bogdan Bogdanovic, let me just make one last point before we move on to our last guy. Bogdan Bogdanovic isn't worth all the scrutiny. I'm sorry. That's the other thing about this.
I know.
Bogdan is good.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna sit here and say Bogdan Bogdanovic sucks, right?
Sure.
I'd say, but would you agree it's a stretch to say he's a top 100 player? Like he's probably really close to that, but I don't think I'd have him in the top 100.
No, I would definitely not have him in the top 100.
Like he is not worth all this scrutiny. And the fact that this guy is being this scrutinized, it makes me mad because it's like if it was LeBron James, right? That's the easy example, right? Like if LeBron James, this was his rookie contract, whatever. It makes sense, right? That this is receiving this level of scrutiny.
Sure.
Obviously, LeBron James is not being signed and traded, but like certain guys are with the level of scrutiny, right? Like if this was, let's throw De'Aaron Fox out there. If this was De'Aaron Fox, he's worth the scrutiny, right? De'Aaron Fox is probably a top 50 player in the NBA. I just don't think.
Yeah.
Bogdan Bogdanovic is worth all this.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm with you.
It was a pretty good trade for both sides. Like the Kings would save some money with Ersan Ilyasova. They'd have a nice young wing that they could maybe do stuff with, and Dante, right? Try some stuff out with him. Bogdan Bogdanovic is not worth all this scrutiny, and it just makes me mad because he's just not worth the scrutiny. He's just not worth the scrutiny. But let's move on to Ricky Rubio. Sure. The Timberwolves traded for him from Oklahoma City. They saved him from the train wreck that was Oklahoma City for James Johnson and a couple of first round picks. So, Caleb, how do you feel like Rubio fits in Minnesota?
Well, I think the really easy way to look at this, Alex, is their backup point guard last year was Jordan McLaughlin, and Ricky Rubio is their backup point guard. So it's a significant upgrade. But in all seriousness, I really do think that this has a chance to unlock Karl Anthony Towns. And I also really believe that it has a chance to unlock D'Angelo Russell because, I do think you and I would both agree D'Angelo Russell is a score first point guard. So if you drop him to 2, maybe you have Rubio come in at starting point guard and you have Rubio, Russell. I mean, this is just me sniffing out a lineup here. You can do a lot of things with it, right? Because they obviously picked Anthony Edwards. You think they might want to try to get Beasley back. So they're deep in the perimeter. They're very deep. So they have a lot of options that they can do. But I just think this is a move that doesn't hurt you. It just doesn't hurt you. You were so bad at backup point guard that it needed to be addressed. And this is a move that addresses it. I don't really think you traded all that much to get it, if I'm going to be quite honest, because of the way that the picks ended up, unless you think James Johnson is a good player, but we all know that's just getting bought out. So it's a deal that logically for the team and for how those guys are could fit in very well. And the other thing I'll say, Alex, is Karl Anthony Towns has never played with a point guard that passes like that. So, I mean, you can get a lot more just easy opportunities because of Rubio's playmaking. And
he has played with a point guard that passes like that. He played with Ricky Rubio.
But I mean, I don't believe that Towns was in a place in development to where he could take advantage of that. Now, I think it's fair to say that Karl Anthony Towns is, you could argue, the best offensive center in the league. And I think with Towns, like, he's got this ability to use his spacing well. He's gotten more mature in his body. And I think he will recognize and appreciate more of how Rubio can just give him those easy shots as a big guy that you just can't get with every other point guard.
I really love Rubio to the Wolves. I think that I think D'Angelo to the 2 is probably going to be the way to go with this. It's going to be terrible defensively, but I mean, Rubio can guard ones, but D'Angelo's defense here is going to be a wash because I mean, but it removes the pick and roll possibilities because you're not going to see a lot of 2s, running pick and rolls. So that takes D'Angelo Russell out of that equation.
Exactly.
I think that this is a phenomenal move. Rubio's defense is still top of the line, right? He really was pretty good in Phoenix last year. Like, he's been really good since he was traded from Minnesota.
He was really good in Phoenix last year.
He was really good in Phoenix. He was really good in Utah, right? I would say Utah would have probably been better off keeping him over Conley. Like, after what we saw this last year, I would say they probably would have been better off keeping Rubio, but still.
Yeah.
Like, this is going to elevate them, I think. We'll see how they bolster their bench. We'll see what happens with Malik Beasley. But you're right. It shores up the point guard minutes. They have 48 minutes of solid point guard play now, which is better than what they could say last year.
It's exactly right.
So, Towns, to me, that'll be interesting, right? Like, to see what happens with that. If he actually buys in on defense. I mean, we've been saying that for the last 5 years.
I agree. Yeah, I know what you're saying.
If he actually plays defense, when he actually tries, he's really good on defense. The problem is he doesn't try.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to think that's more of the actual product than what it is, like, whatever.
Right.
But I don't know. Rubio, to me, is going to shore up the team. It's going to be really fascinating to see what the Timberwolves do, because
I agree.
Anthony Edwards, you've talked about Anthony Edwards a lot. We'll see how he plays, right? We'll see if he does the athletic things. We'll see how good his defense is in the NBA. It's a lot of question marks in Minnesota right now, but
there are. I
think that there's a lot of good aspects to the team. So
yeah.
So since this part of the podcast went a little longer than I expected, we're going to wrap this part up and we're going to record a separate part of the episode just devoted to the draft guys, because we can release that at a later time. But let's talk about the current news now. So that way we have a timely thing out, and then the draft guys we'll probably hold till next week. But yeah, Caleb, man, just in the spirit of closing things out, it's been fun talking to you about this. Can't wait to talk to you about the draft in 2 minutes.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to our next discussion.
Yeah, of course. And let me promote some stuff before we start the next episode.
Go right ahead.
Linsanity, man, you've been on fire lately. Just I'm gonna say it. You're a ball of fire. Every episode that you put out recently has been incredible. So shout out Linsanity. You had Zach Griffith and Bryce. I mean, you have Bryce on every Monday. I do, but I got an old trio back together, an old school big three together, and we came out with a solid episode. We'll have Bryce and me on for next week. It'll just be the two of us, so keep your eye out for that. Which big three are you guys? Are you guys Pierce, Garnett, and Ray Allen? Are you guys the Heatles? Are you guys I can't say the Warriors. I'd like to say, yeah, I would like to say that I think Zach Griffith brings the energy, increases the morale. So I think he's like the KG. I think Bryce is the Ray Allen who gives like the hot takes, and then everybody's like, oh, he's just raining down. And then the stability of Paul Pierce is where I feel like I am. I feel like we're just the beginning big three. I appreciate you not giving yourself Garnett. I didn't deserve that. That's mature of you. That's mature of you. He gives the morality. He's the guy that gets it together, and then from there, you got Pierce and Allen doing their thing. So, speaking of Zach, he has a podcast out this week on Circle City Cinema with Brett Sexton, where he breaks down 2 David Fincher movies, The Game and the cult classic Fight Club, and they're starting a series on David Fincher films because there's a new David Fincher movie coming out on December 4th. So look out for that series. That's going to be good because those guys are always good. Another product Zach Griffith is on is The Battleground. They're off this week, but I believe they'll be back next week with incredibly hot takes, because that's an incredible hot take podcast right there. Battleground is. But JD Hall and Bryce Shaddy on that one as well. Triple Option Pass will be back this week. I'm not going to say it won't be as good, right? Because those guys are always good. But Devin Voss gave me everything I was looking for last week with his joyous Notre Dame takes. And I don't pay as much attention to college football, but was there as much for Devin Voss to be as joyous about this week, Caleb? I don't.
Probably not.
They beat Boston College, right? They should have.
A thing to maybe look out for would be if potentially Indiana would beat Ohio State, because he is a fan of the upsets when they come. So,
I mean, if Indiana beats Ohio State, they got to get Bryce Shaddy on there, because
if he has the courage,
I will be at work.
Yeah, I don't think there's any problem. I feel like Ohio State will get him, but we'll just say.
I don't know what makes you say that. I think IU has a chance. I
can't go.
Let's see. I promoted everything. Before we go, I want to get a football take out of you.
Oh. Okay.
So we got the news today that Jameis Winston won't be seeing the field at all, it sounds like.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, maybe.
I'm gonna ask the question this way. Taysom Hill. Why the hell is this guy getting the snaps over Jameis Winston?
Because they paid him $8 million and they want to figure out a way to use his money. In the NFL, it's as important as ever to use your hard guys because you're on hard cap. Winston was not really signed to this huge deal. It was more of all right, we'll just take a potential guy. Taysom Hill, you paid $8 million. Start using him. I think for the Saints, they feel like they have salary obligations. And I think that's the biggest reason why they did it, because you can't tell me Hill throws a better ball than Winston. And I just think to me, this is just a money thing.
I saw something before we close. I saw a tweet from Roger Sherman today. Oh. It said, Taysom Hill is older than Brock Osweiler, who just retired. Wait. It gets better. But he's thrown 55 career fewer passes than Jake Luton.
What a stat. And the Brock Osweiler thing is just yikes.
The Jake Luton thing.
I know.
How many games has this guy played? 3?
Oh, he's literally like two games. 2 games, Alex. Yeah, I know. What are you going to do?
Also, I want to make sure you check out the Alex and Dylan Basketball Power Hour. It was probably the best thing Dylan and I have ever done, which is saying something.
Saying something.
If you want to hear me go off on Tony La Russa, I'm not going to do it again today because I'm a bigger man than to go.
Are you sure?
Yes, Don't go with me. I'm not going down this road.
I could get you to go off on La Russa right here.
Don't, please. I want to keep it to the Wednesday pod.
Oh, okay.
I go off on Tony La Russa, and also we were doing it live during the first round, so there was some. We reacted to the Luke Kennard trade as it happened, and we talked about the Rubio trade, but we didn't really get into it like the way we got into it here. So that's why I wanted to talk about it again.
Sure.
Caleb, thank you for joining me, and I will talk to you again literally as soon as this podcast is over.
Yep, sounds good. I'll see you.